Look at this savanna biome. Does anything specific stand out to you? Maybe something looks especially cool? Probably not, right? But compare it to some of these real life savannas. Do you notice what's missing? It's these giant towering trees. Well, those savannas, those trees, those are what I'm making today. I want to generate them fully procedurally with a random seed. And of course, I'm gonna be doing all of it with just a couple command blocks. Dragon blood trees. It sounds like a tree that was 100% made up by someone for a D&D quest, but they're actually real. On top of that, they look sick and are perfect candidates to really break up the savanna skyline, which is what I'm going for here. Now I want to jump right into creating the scripts that are going to generate these trees with command blocks, but I think the end product will turn out a lot better if we build an example to get a little more direction for where the schematic is going to be going. And starting everything up, I was just building a dragon blood tree by hand because I wanted to get a feel for how this real world tree would translate into Minecraft. One of the major problems is that the resolution of Minecraft is much lower than real life, if you haven't noticed. And the dragon blood tree has all of these teeny branches that make up its shape. But in Minecraft, we don't really have that resolution, so instead I opted to use some of these mangrove roots along with the acacia logs. And I think it gives the same illusion that we're going for. Now, when I was creating this handmade structure, my main goal was to create the general silhouette of the shape. And I think I did a pretty good job translating that general shape of the tree into Minecraft. And so as I was building it, I was taking down mental notes about how I approached building a specific shape or element of the tree. And then I would use that later to determine the flowchart for building the tree with commands. It's kind of like how in Excel you can create scripts by recording your actions and then replay those actions as a VBA script. So now that that analogy has landed perfectly and everybody knows what I'm talking about, let's get into how the trees generate, starting with the trunk. Now the trunk of these trees is generally very thick and very straight up and down, and the trunk does seem to taper a bit at the top and the bottom, and so I've tried to recreate that while just focusing on the base right here. I think the top is going to be handled a lot by the branches coming out. And right now you're probably noticing the scale of this in Minecraft looks absolutely massive, which you're not wrong compared to most regular trees in Minecraft. But look at these things in real life. They're absolute beasts. Now to help me visualize it, I created these wool templates that kind of are meant to resemble our end product, and they show the basic idea of what we're trying to achieve. So let me break down the key for you here. All of the red wool are blocks that we're going to be placing 100% of the time. This is the stuff that builds up the fundamental shape of our tree. And then the orange wools, these are 2 block tall sections that have a 50% chance of spawning each block. So there's a 30% chance we get none, 30 that we get 1 block, and 30 that we get both blocks. And then these yellow are similar, but it's a 50-50 chance whether we get any block at all. Now which blocks we get are all dependent on the seed of the tree and ultimately decide the shape, height, and characteristics of this individual tree. And they're all randomly generated, so no 2 trees are going to look exactly the same. And you'll see all the command blocks are color coordinated by the wool at the bottom of them, similar to just the wools that I made while I was getting a template for the build. But I've tried to write some solid commentary along with the commands so that hopefully if you decide to download the map in the description, you won't be too confused. Now to summon a tree, I've made this custom spawn egg, which is handled by just these 3 command blocks. And when you spawn a tree, you'll see you get a shape like this. Now this is already accounted for all these blocks that have a random chance of generating, so let me show you what it would look like without those. So right now, all these blocks that are already summoned in will be there 100% of the time in every tree. That gives us the general shape, but it does look pretty skinny, and so each of these armor stands is a block that has a potential to spawn, all dependent on that seed. They're pretty much the same thing as all these wool blocks, but in a form that's easier for the command blocks to understand. Now all of the randomness is handled by the scoreboard command. It'll be a command that looks like this. And so after we summon all those armor stands, we have an orange function and a yellow function. They're both just named after the wool that actually appears in my diagram. And these stacks of command blocks will generate those blocks randomly. And so with all of those command blocks turned on, we get an instant function that generates a randomly seeded base for our tree. There's also a height variable, which will determine how tall the tree is. So if I spawn a couple here, you'll notice that they all have varying heights. I think it can vary by up to 5 or 6 blocks, if I remember correctly. And when they're done creating the base of the tree, they'll all put this armor stand on the top of it. And this armor stand is what we're gonna use to build the branches, the top, and the leaves of all of our trees. And so we've got some solid commands to generate the base of our tree, but we're missing the part of the tree that actually looks cool. the branches. Like I mentioned earlier, this tree has tons of tiny branches that create this thick web and give the tree its signature shape, but that wouldn't really be feasible to create in Minecraft with our command blocks since the resolution is so small. Now the solution that I came up with starts by creating our main branches out from the tip of the tree at that armor stand I was showing you. And we want plenty of variation here so that the tree will look unique, but I've gone ahead and used the wool the same way we did with the base, and basically all our branches should follow this shape and fall within the values of this lower green wool and this upper green wool. Now you'll see this stack with the green wool is responsible for creating our branches, and it ended up getting pretty tall. That's because I played around with a lot of values to get just the right shape, and I ended up drawing this line exactly every time, and the variation for each branch could be seeded by choosing the starting position and angle of each branch that comes out of our trunk. Now I've got a button right here that'll show you what one branch generating looks like. Let me show you. It just looks like that, and if we do a couple here, you can see that they're slightly different positions each time. And so I set up this line of command blocks that will spin that armor stand at the top of our tree and generate branches randomly. So when we put it all together, it looks a little bit silly, but the end product actually comes together pretty nice. And I just threw some leaves on top for right now. We're gonna give it a much better shape in the end because this isn't quite cutting it. And right now it adds exactly 64 branches randomly. But if you wanted to change how many branches were on each tree, it would just be this number right here. And now we're gonna move on to the harder part, and that's gonna be adding these tiny individual branches between the main branches. And like I said earlier, I decided to use mangrove roots to kind of synthesize this look. And so to get this look with command blocks, I started with the function that would generate the branches. And then on top of every acacia log that we placed like this, I wanted to spawn out some roots above it, and from the bottom it creates that depth, and then we also get the roots on top of it. I think it gets the right shape. It does look a little silly when it's just one like this, but you'll see when we spawn it in and it's generating everywhere, it looks a lot more full and less out of place, right? Now that we've created this big brown mushroom shape, all that we need to do to turn this into a tree is add leaves on top. I tried a few different methods to add the leaves, but ultimately I landed on a relatively simple method, pretty similar to the roots, where after we place one acacia log, we'll place all the roots on top, and then on top of that, we'll place the acacia leaves like this. When it all comes together, you end up with one segment that looks like this, which every branch is going to be made out of, which looks a little bit silly when you just have one floating like this. But when we get all 64 branches generating these together, we actually get a very organic looking shape that looks pretty close to the original tree. Now on top of that general tree shape, whenever we get to the edge of a branch like this, I throw down 3 extra leaves just a little bit lower than the rest. And this really helps get that mushroom-esque shape that the tree is notoriously known for. Now with everything we've made, when we place one down, we'll get our base, it'll go up, we'll get the branches coming out with the roots and the leaves as well. The only problem is that we get this empty bald spot in the middle, and you might remember from earlier, we're pretty much just gonna be filling it with those leaves. But now with everything put together, when we spawn a tree in, look at that shape. That is a dragon blood tree. That is what we were going for. Now the overall silhouette of the tree does differ a bit from the handmade one that we were going for earlier, but I actually think the shape of ours looks a lot more organic than the one that we made by hand. But maybe I'm just biased. Let me know if you agree in the comments. But now that we have it all set up, we can go place this anywhere in our world, and it really works to break up that skyline of the savannas. Now one of my favorite parts about these trees is how big they are, which is pretty canon for the actual tree. But if you were exploring your world and you came across some of these in the savannah, they just give that feeling of grandeur walking past them. It's pretty surreal, and I love the way it turned out. And now I did make these trees with the savanna biome in mind, but I was curious to see how it would look when we spawned it into some other biomes that don't have that pale yellow-green leaf texture. And surprisingly, it actually fits in pretty well. It kind of reminds me of the Great Deku Tree from Legend of Zelda, but maybe that's just me. But I haven't played the game in a while, so maybe that's not accurate. Overall, I think the tree came out really surreal, and so I wanted to show some of my friends how cool the trees turned out. And so I loaded up my server and imported the structure, and it's a lot of command blocks, but luckily I didn't have to worry about my server lagging thanks to our channel sponsor, SparkToast. Now SparkToast provides game server hosting for over 1 million players worldwide. They have the best prices with servers from anywhere from $1 a month to absolute powerhouses and everything in between. They're the hosts that I trust and run my server through, and if you sign up with my promo code TheCommandsman, then you can get 25% off your first month while supporting our channel. So go check them out and use that code TheCommandsman for 25% off your first month, and I'll see you guys in the next one.